Welcome, everybody, to a very special episode of History Lessons. Today, we're talking about the B.U.M.S debut album, Lyfe N Tyme, which celebrates the 30th anniversary. My guest is none other than Wyze. Thank you for joining me this evening.
Thank you, my brother, Sin-seer. What's going on with you, my guy?
I'm chilling, man. How's everything your way?
Everything is everything, man. Fresh out of the barbershop, straight to the house for you. You know what I'm saying? Let me turn some light on so I can get a little more clear.
All right.
That better? Too much? That better?
That's good. That's great.
All good. Can I smoke?
Absolutely. Raw and Uncut TV.
Let's go.
All right. We want to take it back and then work our way up a little bit. But before getting with Evo, you were a solo artist and you were also part of the Wake Up Show. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I started in a group with CMT Miraculous, formerly of EA Ski. We both started together, and then he transitioned over to EA Ski, but my whole rap career started with CMT Miraculous. Me and him grew up in the same neighborhood. Like, literally, I was in the middle of the block. He was up the street and around the corner. So since 7, 8 years old, me and him been rolling. And then he got with EA Ski. I got with All City and the Wake Up Show, then became the Brothers Under Madness. Here we are.
Did anything materialize with that first group?
I could probably say honing our crafts. We never really got to release any music and everything because everything started moving fast with him and Ski. So, they went and did their thing. And then some years later, of course, me with the B.U.M.S. But the funny part was we both were signed to the same label. So that turned out, same block, same label, same purpose. We in it to win it, get in there, get signed, make some classic music. And even though we was on different platforms, we still succeeded. So,
right. How'd you get down with the Wake Up Show?
I went to high school and junior high school with Sway, of course. And from maybe a little bit after 12th grade, it was my sister who was like, man, you should start hanging around with Sway. So I became we already knew each other. We went to the same high school, me, his brother, T-Cal. We all went to the same high school. And when it fizzled with CMT, she said, you should start fooling with Sway. So I started fooling with Sway. And fast forward, here we are. So, but Sway was my, he was the ace in the hole. His drive was something that I ain't never seen before, especially being 18, 19 years old, myself and him being maybe a year over me. It was intriguing. Like, I want to see what happens. You know what I'm saying? So whatever goes on, I'm along. I'm here.
Right.
And it just went from after high school, all the way to where we are now.
Now, as a young artist, before getting signed, what were you witnessing up at the Wake Up Show with some of the artists coming through there?
I was one of the guys that was bringing the artists in. So it'd be like, such and such is coming in, like, oh, we got Cypress Hill coming in, or got Wu-Tang coming in. You got to go, I was seeing these guys at the very beginning of their careers. You know what I'm saying? Not even knowing that I would have one inside of it. You know what I'm saying? And, I was we had to pay dues. It wasn't like you just jumped in and became this superstar. You know what I'm saying? You had to work for yours. So started off opening doors, carrying crates, setting up, doing whatever they needed to be done. You know what I'm saying? And it just kept going on from there. And then I would always write verses, and I would always spit them to him. He would turn around I'll be in the back seat. He'd turn around like, he said, not yet. You're almost there. So basically, he'll be like waiting for that one. So when he hear that one, he go like, yo, he's like, I want you to do that tonight. So that was how I got my introduction, sitting in the back seat, spitting verses, and then he go like, "Yo, I'm gonna put you on tonight." So that's how that happened.
Right. What kind of feedback were you getting off those verses from the community and everybody who was listening to the Wake Up Show?
Well, being from the West Coast and doing hip hop, of course we had a different style. So it was always like, you sound like they from New York, and he gets that, and I said, well, I know a lot of people in New York. Hip hop started in New York. Not saying I was on their dick. The West Coast we had our own, vibe coming up then, but they were in the forefront, and we had to come up behind them with our own shit. So basically, I took a hip hop style, but still talk Bay Area slang in it. So we were more metaphoric, more lyrical, more flow. We wasn't considered game spitters. You know what I'm saying? And what the town is known for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And well preserved. I got all of that. All of that is in everything that you hear. It's just that we just spit it different. That's all.
Right.
That's it. That's all.
What were some of your or who were some of your earlier influences around that time?
Oh man, Short, of course. I stayed on 55th. He lived in the, near the, sometimes in the West, the 40s, and we would always see him on the 40, and slanging tapes. It wasn't like he had a stack of tapes. You would have to see him and be like, "Yo, man, can I get one of them tapes?" And he would make it personally for you. So seeing all of that, I got to see the Delinquents, Plan B, Rappin' Ron, Sidle, Dangerous Dame, Father Dom, Capital Tax. All of this was right in my neck of wood. Hyro, everything. It was so many different influences back then, man. So many Loonies, Drew. It was all. It was right there in the center. Right there. So it's like you walk around, you go out of your neighborhood, you might see, MC Valentine or Dangerous Dame or MC Ant. These are cats that were, local artists, but big. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, you seeing that all the time, and you want to do it. So, of course, you're like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do. So, by the time I was in the 12th grade, I knew what I wanted to be.
Right.
That's it.
What do you remember most about vocalists coming up to the Wake Up Show early on?
Same scenario. We was both in the same boat. Evo used to. He was a dancer for Sway. Inside his group with a cat named Kenobi, and I forget the other cat name, but Kenobi, Evo, Cool Cass. He became an artist at All City. So everybody had different roles. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't a dancer. I was the barber. You know what I'm saying? I cut everybody's hair. Sway's hair. I cut Sway's hair his whole career. And, and then he grew locks. But I was his barber from after high school until everything. So, yeah. But Evo was, he was more metaphoric than me. So he got more oohs and ahs. And I got more like straight to you. I was telling, all my style has always been coming straight at you. I'm going to tell you just what it is. I'm not going to, it's not that I didn't have time to sit back and come up with metaphors and shit like that. It was just Evo had his style, I had mine. And somehow, some way we made it fit. And it did. Right. So, but Evo was definitely steps ahead of me as far as lyrical.
Okay.
So it was he probably had more Wake Up Show presence than I did in the early days. He was on some of the songs, the Wake Up Show songs. So I was still in training. I was still, finding who Wyze is, who is Dangerous Words You Zigzag Every Day. So once I figured him out, now it's just to basically prime him up, shine him up, polish him, and then just let it keep developing. But Evo was definitely in the forefront ahead of me, before the B.U.M.S.
Okay. Now, how did you guys catch the ear of a certain A&R from Priority Records?
Freestyling. he actually was out there in the Bay Area signing artists. You know, he picked up, you know, Rally Row, EA Ski. I think he got a hold. I think he may have got a hold of San Quinn. You know, there's a bunch of Bay Area artists that they cropped out of here, and they came up to the Wake Up Show. Ern Lamato came up to the show, had an interview, and then he left. And then when he got in the limo to go back to the airport, we started freestyling. So he heard that because we went back and forth. So after Evo do maybe 8 bars or whatever, it was like right on time. Like I knew exactly what he was going to say. Is my, you know, my turn is to come now. And so I just jump in, and he was hearing it back and forth. Told the limo driver to, hey, yo, turn back around, go back up to the radio station. So he came back up to the station, and he asked, who the fuck was that just finished freestyling over the air? And he was like, him over there in the UPS shirt and the cat over there in the Army fatigues. So Evo was in the military. And I worked at UPS and was still attending barber school. So I was working 2 jobs and going to school, and then get off work from UPS on Friday and then go to the Wake Up Show. So he was like, him and that guy over there. And that's when Sway walked over to us and was like, yeah, you see this guy over here? I'm like, that's Ern Lamato. He's actually an A&R from Priority Records. And he's wondering if you guys are a group. And I go like, it kind of like light bulb instantly. Like, And so he was like, I'm just going to throw that in this. He said, just food for thought. He's here about you guys, but he's asking me, are you guys a group? So you need to go talk to each other. We knew each other. Excuse me for a second. We knew each other, and he dropped my blunt. We knew each other, and so we went over to the side, chopped it up, and he's like, so if you guys are going to do this, you guys need to come up with a name, a type, you know, what it means, everything, like right fucking now. So we went over to the side and we started chopping it up. Unless you want to do it, unless it's a record label. This is what, you know, this is what I'm looking for. And he was like, fuck it, let's do it. So we started coming up with names. So we are, King Tech would always say, oh, here come them bums again. Because I was always dirty from work, slinging boxes. And Evo was in the military, so he had fatigues on. So he kept saying that, so it just kept clicking. I was like, you keep calling us the bums. Why don't we just call ourselves the bums? And he was like, well, what does it mean? And so Evo would come up with like Black Ultimate Males, Brothers Utilizing Materials. And then we just like came up, we was like, how about this? The Brothers Under Madness, the B.U.M.S. And he was like, all right, let's do it. So we walked over there and we was like, yo, what's up? I'm Wyze. He said, I'm vocalist with the Bums, the Brothers Under Madness. And he was like, I like that. I like that a lot. So after that, there it is. So all she wrote. So we got a deal. So the Bums got their deal from spitting freestyles over the radio on the King Tech and Sway Wake Up Show, like 5 minutes before the show ended.
So, wow. So how long after that were you signing the contract?
Steamroll. They instantly was like, we got to get y'all in the studio. So he already had a production team, King Tech, Joe Quicks, Fred Reck. You know, Fred Reck, he's with Aftermath, he's with Dre now. And we were actually his first production on a major label. So Fred Reck, Joe Quicks, the Baker Boys, and then King Tech, and that was it. And we was in the studio recording immediately. And they wanted to know what we had. And we had a bunch of records, you know, in the next few months that all the negotiations and talks was talking. And we was like, we got some records, but we're only going to send them one. And I said, we guarantee you they sign us from it. And we sent them Elevation. We sent them Elevation, and next thing you know, I had a FedEx package sent to my mom's crib, God rest the dead. And she's like, you got a big-ass manila envelope here, and it says from Priority Records. And I literally just left the barbershop, shot over to her house, got it, and I was like, it's a record contract. and took it to the lawyers, did the whole thing. Michael Ashburn, which is opioid souls and mischiefs pop, and went and got it read to us in layman terms, and figured out the deal. So I knew everything was going on with the deal, and that was it. So 94 we were signed. 95, late 94 we started making noise, and then dropped Elevation, that made some noise, and then dropped Take a Look Around, that started making more noise, and that's all she wrote. Then we released the album, and 30 years later, here we are.
Right. What do you remember most about the streets and the radio and the heavy rotation of Elevation when that dropped?
We was everywhere. We was getting put on promo tours, opening up for big acts. It was just, you get swept off your feet. It was like meeting the finest chick you ever met in your life, and she just sweeps you off your feet. And one minute you're working in a barbershop and slinging boxes, and then the next thing you know, you're giving a resignation letter to your job, letting them know that effective immediately, I'm out of here. But I stayed working in the barbershop because that's, I'm the boss of that. So I always stayed working in the shop because, when you get off doing shows, what are you doing? Go make some money. So stayed in the barbershop till this day. I've always been the barber MC, so I'm still doing it to this day. But it was a steamroll, man. It was like that mighty hand just said, "Come on, y'all, it's time to get busy," and that's what we did. Right. The streets, it was different then because of the fact that it was more. There was no internet. We had internet, but it wasn't like as powerful as it is. You had to get out there and pound the ground.
Right.
You had to get out there and go up in the mom and pop stores. It was super hand to hand. DJ pools, showing up for opening up for for people, for other artists that flew in town. It was just like you are artists now. So if I gotta call you, you gotta, let's go. And that's how it was for the first couple of years, and it was dope.
Right.
It was dope.
Now you were new to the whole recording process, being in the studio, recording.
No. I was in the studio with CMT.
Okay.
I was in the studio with CMT. We was doing shit where you had to run the reels around the room. You know what I'm saying? Stretching the tape out just to keep that thing so you record. I've been in the studio since when we built the one in his basement. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah, studios. Now I've been going inside a studio since I was maybe 17. I'm talking about from being in the studio in your basement or touching Live Oak Studios or going up to the grill. So when you go up in there and you see the real deal, say you definitely want to be, be in that. That's where, that's where you go do your work. The basement studio is basically pre-production.
Right.
You format, you're making beats and coming up with ideas and shit. Everything was sampling in. And,
right.
We was dealing with samplers where they were trigger samplers, like from the guitar phase. You know what I'm saying? So studios, I've been in studio damn near my whole life. So, my father was a recording artist. So he had a group called the Domestics, and they would bring the full band in my mother's house. And so while we're upstairs trying to go to sleep, him, drums, guitars, horns, they're all downstairs. Microphones, PA systems, they're all downstairs in the living room.
Right.
So I'm maybe 2-3 years old. I'm falling out of the crib, sliding down the stairs, and sitting down on the floor watching them. So and my mom used to say, "Get him back upstairs." And my pops would say, "No, just leave him alone, because he ain't gonna do nothing but cry all night. Just leave him alone." So it must have been in the code from 3 years old until here I am now. So being around studios and shit like that, I was amazed at it, but I was pretty much frequent going to studios, you know, fucking with the hieroglyphics, DJ Torre. You know, I've been fooling with Torre since the late 80s. You know what I'm saying? He DJs for them. You know what I'm saying? So I've been around that shit a long, long time, my guy. But to get in it myself, yeah, the first few times in the studio was like, you know, like, of course you're going to get shit stains in your drawers. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you realizing you're doing this for a major label for your career.
Right.
Yeah, hell yeah, I was nervous, but
Right.
it wasn't new to me though.
Gotcha.
But once we got into the album, maybe 2, 3, 4 songs into the album, it's nothing.
What was that creative process like? You're working with, somebody that you're creating new music with. What kind of conversations did you guys have as far as concepts and ideas for this album?
Well, I'm a few years older than Evolve, so I was considered the big brother. So I had to basically. They told me when we got together, like, D, you got to stick with them. You got to go hang with them. If you got to crash over there, sleep head to toe, whatever. And so we hung out. So we had to get to know each other. You know our likes, dislikes, shit that set us off, how we respect levels. You know, don't play with me, I won't play with you. You know, we're here for a bigger purpose. And so with me being older, I would travel to him more than he would travel to me. And we found a spot where we could practice at, where we could be as loud as we want. And it was actually in Emeryville on the train tracks. They had this, like a shed. They had a power switch in it. So we had light, and we would go in there, we would write our shit, and then go practice it in there. You know, sometimes they'll come in there and, you know, kick us out or whatever. But we would literally walk from his spot off of San Pablo, which is like directly parallel from the Muslim bakery, and then hit the block, go over the tracks, and go down to the actual tracks where the rocks are, and you see all the extra train tracks in the train, trailers and shit. And we found that box, and that was home base. So whenever I go over there, we instantly, like, I would write my rhymes at my spot. He would write his there. We'd be on the phone spitting the verses, and then I would say, boom, I'm coming out. So I go over there to his mom's house. Then we'll take the same radio, which I still have this very day. I'm going to show you if I can find it. This is the actual... This is the actual radio that we wrote Lyfe N Tyme on. Well, I wrote my verses too.
Wow.
The actual radio that Lyfe N Tyme was written, it still works to this day. CD player still works, the cassette still works. So, you know, I keep shit like this just to let, you know, remind me of, you know, where I come from and what I did to make it. So right. This is a family heirloom. I'll probably take this, put it in the casket with me, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's the radio, man. I walk everywhere with that. If I caught the bus, the BART, I had a major deal and I was catching the bus and the BART. You know what I mean? And I had a car.
Right.
But I was so grounded, so I catch the bus and BART.
So,
stay there.
You talked earlier about some of the producers on the album: Joe Quitz, right. Boys, Fred Reck, King Tech. Talk about that beat selection process. How were you guys going through the beats and picking and choosing what's going to land on this album?
Fights. I have a better ear for beats than Evo. Evo will rhyme over anything. You know what I'm saying? He's musically inclined that way. So me, I'm precise. I'm defined. I know what fits and where I know that we can embody mesh into the music. You know what I'm saying? Not just grabbing something and just going over it. You know what I'm saying? Something that you can actually put passion into it. So picking Evo picked a multitude of beats. I picked a multitude of beats. Tech, Joe, sometimes it was like, no, this one is going on there. You know what I'm saying? So it was more of you had to be on the level of knowing that, no, this is a universal sound that I'm listening to. And that's the reason why I'm picking it. I'm not thinking about it being just for when we put the record out. I'm talking about it can roll, sorry about that it can roll out 20, 30 years later. You can put it on and just let it run. I want to look for that. I'm like, so if we do have a possibility of a few beats on it that may be, you won't recognize it.
Mm.
You won't recognize it because they, even the ones that I thought that for that song could have been better, you still couldn't recognize, you know, from my point of view. You know what I'm saying? So everything on that album was very well selected. Very well selected because first and foremost, we got to rap on. We got to tell this Lyfe N Tyme story on this album. So even if it's to a point to where some of the beats where you were like, yeah, I could do something to it. Yeah, I think I can feel it. You know what I'm saying? But once I got it, like it was a couple of them I was going like, fuck is this shit? But took it home. We came up with the concept. Then I started going, okay, I get it. And so it was a lot of that. It was a lot of arguing. It was a lot of some beats were just selected, but we had a majority of the votes for the album. It wasn't like they just threw us everything and we just took it. We had some say so about it. We had to.
Right. What was those studio sessions like? Where all the yeah. Tell us about the studio sessions.
Come on, man. You know how when you go in the studio when you're not saying your shit right, you're getting barked at. You're getting barked at. You know, they letting you know, man, it's a lot of fucking money being spent right now.
Right.
I'm fucking around. And so it taught me how to be more prepared coming into the studio, like having my shit ready. And so it would be to where I would go in there, I would write them and I would memorize them. Sometimes I would, when you come in there with a pad, and I might have 4 or 5 verses I got to do, you know, for different songs for the album. There's a lot of songs on that album that didn't make the album. You know what I'm saying? So you imagine, I think it's 21 cuts on the album. Think about maybe 25 or 30 more that didn't make the album. You know what I'm saying? We were heavily recording. You know what I'm saying? And that album was put together like chess, bro.
Sounds like it.
It was put together like chess. It wasn't no checkers, man. It wasn't jumping all over the board. That album had impact. It was like you know, it had an impact, and it impacted me. Like the first time I heard the full composition, you know what I'm saying, the full format of it. I think I listened to it, and it was on a black and white label, you know, just clear CD. Took it home. I probably listened to it for about 4 hours, just all the way through, back to back. With this deck, and just put it on repeat and just let it. And I would just literally just sit there and smoke. I probably fell asleep, woke back up, and it was like, it's not one thing on here that I don't like.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that just from an artist, knowing that I recorded it, or me and Evole and King Tech Sway, Joe Quicks, Fred Reck, everybody, you know, that was included, Baker Boys that was included, Motion Man that was included on it. I don't think nobody could say that it was anything on that album that wasn't mastered. It was like, and I was like, yo, this is gonna be different. Like me listening to it before it releases, I was like, yo, this is gonna be different. Like, you know how you kind of get like a nervous feeling, like either they're gonna receive it or they're gonna shit on it. And just to get the response that we got after like the first few weeks when it came out, it was like, yo, he was like, yo, whoa, god damn. And after that, it was just, that was it.
Right. Did you guys have 100% creative control over the project?
Fuck no. Not at all. It was more of it was more of a collective. You know what I'm saying? It was a straight unified move. A lot of stuff happened behind doors that we didn't get to see, as far as like when the album was like mixed and mastered and all that kind of stuff. I always stayed for like the reference mixes after we recorded them. I would always stay because of course, I got drum machines and shit. So that's always been in my code. So to see something that I made get toned and opened up, and then you get to see the beauty right in your face. I always stayed as long as I could, because most of the time they would kick me out. Like, yo, you gotta go. Like, I'm like, why? This is my shit. I'm like, so I'm posted. I'm gonna stay.
Right.
Like, so I would stay as long as I could, as long as my body let me stay up. But a lot of the album, a lot of the stuff was, the good stuff was done behind closed doors, because it was some things that I didn't know nothing about engineer wise and mix and master wise and shit like that. But when it came to editing, that was me doing all the drops, what makes open the song up, breakdowns. Oh yeah, I'm there for that. I'm not going nowhere.
Right.
I'll leave when you guys start mixing it, and you guys want to have your engineer moments, and have your full capacity where you guys are just working together. I'll get out on that. But when you edited my shit, I'm there. Mm-hmm. So every record that was damn near done for Lyfe N Tyme, I stayed for the edits. Straight up, I stayed for the edit of the song. Period. I wanted to hear what I was gonna sound like before it was mastered, mixed and mastered. So, okay. Do you like what that sounded like? Yeah, no, I want you to put the drop right here. You know what I'm saying? So I had that insight on my, especially like on my parts. Yeah, I would always tell them like, yeah, no, I want it right there. No, right here. I want to echo right here. No, slow delay, fast, so I had a lot of input in that. But Joe Quicks in tech was really the masterminds of the arrangement of that project. Dead ass.
Were there any thoughts of having guest features? If I can remember, I don't believe there was any guest features, right?
One, Mystic.
Okay.
She's the only feature on the album, on the title track, Lyfe N Tyme. I think it's one of the only albums, other than I think Hyro maybe, that was just all the way through just them. And we did the one song with Mystic because she was on her way up, and we needed something totally different on the album other than bringing in, a Sin-seer, which we did on a remix though. And he was actually the only other artist that had anything to do with that B.U.M.S, B.U.M.S project. Sin-seer, God rest the dead, alhamdulillah, and Mystic. They were the only artists that had anything to do with the Lyfe N Tyme album. Now we have remixes from different producers, that did remixes on it and shit like that. But as far as artists, Sin-seer, Mystic, that was it.
What was Sin-seer's input
for the album?
Yeah,
he was on we actually did a B-side record for the second single, Take a Look Around. So we had the Reanimators. They did a couple of remixes on the record. Fred Reck did the remix, the original and the original remix for the video. And then Joe Quicks did Rain, which has Sin-seer on it. So the Rain was basically like a bonus track. And I think I got the track like about 11 o'clock at night. And Joe Quick's like, yo, you gotta do this song. We gotta do this song called Figure It Out What You're Gonna Call It. But I got this record. I want you, Evo, and Sin-seer. So I was like, all right. So when I heard the beat, I was like, let me start it off. I don't want nothing else to, just let me start it off. I like, just since I'm up, I'm gonna write my shit right now, and when I'm done, I'm gonna come drop it. So I wrote my shit, finished it about maybe, 2 in the morning, wrote my verse, tried to memorize it as much, went to the studio, did the verse, Evo did his verse, and then Sin-seer did his, and he totally just threw a curveball in the whole shit because of that flow. And motherfucker was like, what is he saying? I was like, listen, man, to the metaphor. I like everything he's saying is a metaphor, and it has an attachment to it. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, watch me make my paper mate into the womb witch. One of you want to ride the broom, but it's not wooden. Swinging shit like Dwight Gooden pronto. Knock it into Toronto, Canada. Sweep the whole world like a janitor for no pay. It was just, and here I am just flowing straight on through. And then the Evo comes in, put 20 bitches in a circle, and you still couldn't fuck around. So when Sin-seer came in and he did his shit, and it was just like when you watching him do it, and he's only doing certain parts of it. So he's like, watch, room witch, gooden, but it's not. And you sitting there going like, what the fuck is he doing? And then he goes back and does his ads and fills it all in, and then you going like this. Fuck out of here. Like, that's crazy. So I'm basically learning something because I wasn't doing none of that. I was always just going all the way through my shit. So I wasn't doing like any saying some of my verse and then make an accent or something like, you want to sound out of here. I learned that shit from Sin-seer, how to do the ad libs and all that. I knew how to do ad libs over my vocals, say just, adding to pump them up, but not no character shit. You know what I'm saying? And when he did that, I was like, oh yeah, he opened up my eardrums to something new. So now I had to start, but keep it D-Wyze in his form. Not take his shit, but do certain things on certain songs with it, but my way.
Right.
And it worked. But Sin-seer, that B-side, that actually pumped up the second single, to me, was a bigger song than Take a Look Around. The B-side, that song was like an underground gem. It was a B-side. Nobody really trips off the B-side.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? But when you find one like that, it was like, how can you not like that record? Like, and it became getting spins just like Take a Look Around in Elevation was. But it wasn't a single. And I swear to God, I used to like, we should shoot a video for this. I'm telling you, we should shoot a video for this. I'm telling you, this song right here is an old gem. And we should visualize this shit. And nobody took it. I was like, damn. But it is what it is.
Right. Speaking of Take a Look Around, what kind of momentum did you see when that dropped and how the album kind of took off?
Take a Look Around was like an extension of Elevation. It was like the second part. It was like, so you got part A, here's part B. Like, okay, like, and then you got the album that drops, after that. But Take a Look Around was really, Elevation was the introduction for the Bums. Take a Look Around was letting you know what we've been through, where we're going, where we come from, where we're going, showing you. And I kept mine in the neighborhood because I always told them, if I make it, I'm shooting a video on my block and I'm going to come tell everybody in the neighborhood. So if you Take a Look Around, that's my block. That's 55th and Fleming. And when they came around, everybody seen them cameras and then the big van and they were like, oh shit, like he really did that shit. And so everybody that's in there in that video were either from my neighborhood, what I'm saying, other than Evo, and whoever was with All City with us that day. But everybody over there, that was my whole neighborhood right there.
Right.
That field. There was probably about maybe 30, 40 people, you know what I'm saying, that came out. So yeah, I brought it back to the block.
Right. With so much positive feedback and momentum with the album, why only 2 singles?
Well,
Politics
as usual. We were on set. The album was out. I wish we could have did 3, but of course, back then major labels dropped 2 singles, then your album. So we could have pulled another record out of there. We could have did either Lyfe N Tyme. We could have did There's a bunch of records on there that we could have put as singles, but the deal was for 2 singles, album, and then however the album does will qualify you for a redo, another album. So we got the pull for starting on the second album, and of course the politics came in, and here we are. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we were maybe about 5, 6 songs into the second album, and we were working with Rick Rock, and we were going to bring it back to the, we were going to mix it around with some Bay Area producers. So we had Lon and Dre, and they did a lot of original production, like cover production, and we did Rick Rock. We ended up doing maybe 3 or 4 with Rick Rock, and after that, halfway in the doing that, the politics kicked off, and everything got started walking in sand, in deep sand, and here we are. You know what I'm saying? But it was all politics, man. It was all politics. It was what it is what it is. When you're an independent artist, get assigned to a deal, they have regulations that you must meet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or, of course, a lot of shit happens from the inside. A lot of shit don't get torn down from the outside, it's in the inside. So when the politics hit, it was destined that it was not going to be a second album. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't destined that I was going to stop.
Right.
So it kind of like, I'm like, oh no, fuck that. I'm like, I understand the politics and everything that transpired, but that's not the end. And I didn't get in it. I didn't get in it to do one and be a one and done. You know what I mean?
Right.
I didn't want none of that for nobody. You know what I mean? And we still did a bunch of records afterwards. You know what I'm saying? Me and Evo, we had ideas we wanted to do, all kinds of shit. But life kicked in. Life kicked in. We had kids, and I moved here. He moved there. You know what I'm saying? And so then we started getting the separation, not from being boys, but just growing up. You know what I'm saying? And so, then you just start doing what you got to do.
Right.
If you want to do it, you stay doing it. So we both stayed doing it. You know what I'm saying? Evo did the Fast Foundation. I was doing straight independent projects by myself, jumping on whoever's record they put me on. If they wanted me for an EP or whatever, I'd do songs for them. I'm in this. You know what I'm saying? And the B.U.M.S, the group is still the group. The B.U.M.S is still the B.U.M.S. There's never been a breakup.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's never been a breakup. You know what I'm saying? The only thing it is the brothers under madness is just the brothers is under madness. We just living life. You know what I'm saying? And it's just niggas is living.
When that album finally dropped, what do you remember most about the reviews? I know the Source magazine gave you guys 3 mics. What was your
I think we got 3.5, 4 mics. I can't remember. I still got it over there somewhere. But of course it'll piss you off. You know what I'm saying? But back then, you was dealing with East Coast, West Coast shit. You know what I'm saying? So the Source being mostly of a East Coast magazine, 3.5 mics is better than no mics. You know what I'm saying? So, but it had to be about something because we got the quotable, and it's not too many artists from the Bay Area that got the Source quotable. So shouts out to Evocalist, Source quotable for the Brothers Under Madness. Yeah, I was pretty fucking cool about it. I could care less that, the 3.5 mic. I knew what that thing was. That thing was a 5 micer.
Absolutely.
That thing was a 5 micer, man.
Were you guys able to tour off that project?
We did a bunch of promotional tours. We had a lot of We did a lot of East Coast, Midwest, down south, you know, basically everywhere nationwide, really. You know what I mean? And then home. We did a lot of shit home early before we were really even um, boiling. You know, Sway had an immaculate mouthpiece, and we were getting, you know, openings. He was like, yeah, you just call you out of the blue, like, yo, you motherfuckers need to go to Soundwave and start practicing. You motherfuckers is opening up for KRS. Y'all opening up for Big. You opening up for Cypress, Wu-Tang. And I was like, opening? He's like, yeah, you know, before them. Get the fuck out of here. And here we are.
Right.
Here we are. So yeah, but touring, that's my thing. That's what I do. I got a show coming up this Friday. You know what I'm saying? I travel, do shows back east, Vegas. I'm trying to get down to LA, but they had them fires down there, so they shut shit down for a while. But I do shows out here as much as I can get on. I need a booking agent. So I know somebody watching this.
Right.
But yeah, man, I my thing is you notice, man, I keep a suitcase always ready down there on the floor, ready to go. You know, that's been me since back in the day. So I'm going. If you tell me you got a show for me,
Out.
I'm out.
No doubt.
Tell the crib, like, yo, I got a gig out in such and such. I'll be gone 4-5 days. See when I get back.
Okay.
That's it.
Wyze, I want to thank you so much for spending time and talking about this classic album. Before
Absolutely.
we get out of here, man, what do you think it is about Lyfe N Tyme that we're still talking about it 30 years later?
I think it was the originality for two brothers being from Oakland, first and foremost. I think it was a rabbit in the hat. It was a rabbit in the hat for real. It was like both of us were absolutely too young and to be that ahead. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, we had topics, concepts, theories, life stories. So basically we just gave y'all our lives at that age, but we were ahead. So we were basically 2-3 years ahead, because some of the shit we talked about wasn't even, you know, talked about. You know, especially Evo. Evo, you know, he was just completely intelligent. You know what I'm saying? Me being from East Oakland, I had more of the hustler's mentality. So just incorporating his ingenuity with my hustlers, and being from the hoods, you know, even though I didn't live, my mom's house wasn't in the hood, it was up, but I was surrounded. So when I got off that block, I was in the trenches. You know what I'm saying? So telling my side and his side, it all fit. It all just fit. And that Lyfe N Tyme album gave us the credibility that we still being heard and love for that album. It's, you know, we got on the wall in the hip hop museum back up in the Bronx. So one of my things is to go out there, you know, of course, put my finger by there, like, that's me. And for that to be on that wall, that lets me know that one album slated us in the 50 years of hip hop.
Right.
So for that, I appreciate Sway, Tech, All City, Priority, all the producers, Joe Quicks, Evo, Positive Red, our DJ, Fred Rec, the Baker Boys, everybody that had a Motion Man, Kevy Kev, Cool Breeze, everybody who had anything to do with Lyfe N Tyme. Thank you. You are the reasons why that album is what it is. And the fans, of course. You know what I'm saying? So I cannot forget the fans. I love you guys. It blows my mind that 30 years later, that album came out a few days ago, 30 years ago, that is still so impactful. That we were able to put out a 25-year double album of that album, which is wonderful. So that lets me know that thing is going to be for another 20, 25 years still slated as a classic. So that I thank you, Sin. I thank you because you've been a backbone for me for a while. You know what I'm saying? As far as me doing this thing on a solo venture, and I just want to pay flowers to you. And what you do keeps me doing what I do.
Appreciate
you know what I'm saying? So hopefully in the next 15 years, if I'm still on the planet, we can have these conversations again. You know what I'm saying? So, but get ready to look for D-Wyze's new album, My Contribution, coming out this year. I'm almost done with him. You know, it's only going to be 10 songs, but I got my producer, Poetic Beast, DJ J Ski. I produced, me and my boy produced the track on the album. I got Brother Broski, Mac Ream's gonna be out on the album. I got the Rod Project on the album. I got Champ Green from MacArthur Maze on that joint. My man All Purpose from my group JDP is on it. Mike Hands is from another group that I'm in called the Expandables. So Coin Flip Management, 55th Hill Records. I got an album coming out sometime this year. I'm not gonna put it out until I know it's all chess played out right. But My Contribution, D-Wyze, 2025. Much love, Sin-seer.
Appreciate you, D.Y.
Love.
No doubt. Like I said, once again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. No, thank you.
We get out of here. Would you shout out your social media?
Yeah, you got everybody knows where I'm at. I'm D-Wyze 55 of the B.U.M.S on Twitter, Instagram, D'Angelo D.Y. Smith on Facebook. Same thing as on TikTok and Snapchat and all them social medias. Same name, D-Wyze of the B.U.M.S. So as long as you type in D-Wyze of the B.U.M.S, you'll see my ugly mug. Bald head, big beard.
No doubt. That's the one and only D.Y. from the
Yes,
B.U.M.S.
sir. Yes, sir.
30th anniversary interview. Thank you so much, D.Y.
Thank you, Sin. Love, baby.
Love. Let's stay in touch.
One, no doubt. Peace.
Peace.